Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. In this episode I'm going to be talking about James Bulger's killer, Jon Venables, and why he's had his parole turned down. Now, Jon Venables was recalled to prison for child abuse images that were found in his possession. Now, everyone will remember this case. It was in 1993 when Jon Venables, alongside Robert Thompson, was jailed for life for the killing of old Jamie Bulger. So for the viewers that don't know about this case, I mean, the majority of my viewers are from the UK and they will know about this case. Everyone, especially from my era. I was born in 1985. I was 8-year-old at the time, and I can still remember from that young age about this case. It was one of those cases that shocked the nation. It was one of the worst cases that you heard of. I mean, two 10-year-old boys took a 2-year-old James from a shopping centre in Bootle in Merseyside and went on to kill him. And they were both given a life sentence. And Jon Venables was freed in 2001. So he'd only served 8 years. He got out when he was 18-year-old. And he was recalled to jail in 2010 and in 2017 after being found with child images. Like I've mentioned, I'll not say the word too many times because it will flag up on YouTube and the video won't be, or the video can get flagged up, because a couple of my videos in the past where I've spoke about things and the videos will get flagged and they will be stopped from getting played, which is a shame, but that's what happens on YouTube. So he's been back up for another parole hearing and it's just been turned down, and it says there's 3 reasons why James Bulger's killer, Jon Venables, lost his bid for freedom. So what happens when he's been up on his parole board? He goes up on the parole board and he's fighting for his freedom, and he's trying to convince the parole board that he's no longer a danger, and he's trying to get released back into society. But someone like this, he's now 41-year-old, who's got a past like this, and he's been recalled on 2 occasions, and I believe both times it was for images. And the first reason it goes on to say here, that lack of honesty in dealing with staff. The parole board said it doubted Mr. Venables' ability to be open and honest with professionals and concluded that there remained a need for him to address outstanding levels of risk and develop his relationship with his probation officer. It says concerns over images, I'll not say the word. The board said that the killer had completed a considerable amount of work in prison to address his offending, but the panel remained concerned by continuing issues of an nature. The summary added the panel considered that there were future risks of Mr. Venables again viewing these images of children, which has happened before, which is quite understandable from the parole board. And the decision, in my eyes as well, was the right decision not to free him, to let him back out. Because when he's keep doing this sort of offending, and he's done that sort of offending when he was 10-year-old, imagine what he could be capable of now, being a man and viewing these type of images. He is a dangerous predator that does not deserve to be back on the streets. And it goes on to say the third reason is he's a risk to other people. It was also felt that there was a future risk of Venables, if he were to be released, progressing to offences where he might have contact with children, and both of these present a risk of causing serious harm to others. A long-standing legal order protects the identities of Venables and Thompson because of their young age when they committed the murder. Parole Board Chairwoman Caroline Corby chose not to hold the hearing in public, and James's families were not able to attend. Venables refused to give evidence during the latest hearing because permission had been granted for a lawyer representing his victims' parents to listen to the proceedings. He was not comfortable discussing some aspects of the case with the family representative listening, and instead asked the panel to consider his review based solely on written evidence according to the summary. Despite submissions from the Justice Secretary, Mr. Chalk, and his predecessor, Dominic Raab, that Venables was still a danger to society, Venables was granted the unprecedented 2-day hearing, which took place behind closed doors earlier this month, because it would harm his mental health. But after arguing that the hearing should be private, he failed to show up, meaning all evidence was read to the parole board. After almost 2 weeks deliberating, they decided Venables was still too much of a danger to be released, and he was sent straight back to prison. The government is hoping to get the new Victims and Prisoners Bill through by early next year, meaning any Justice Secretary will have a final say on whether repeat offenders are allowed to be released from prison. But again, like I've went on to say, I've dealt with the parole board on numerous occasions myself, and I know what it's like to be on a parole board. But Venables didn't even have the courage or the decency to go on and fight for his freedom himself. So what does that go on to tell you? If he's not even going to go up and stand and fight for his rights to get out of prison, he probably knows deep down that he'd be wasting his time, because he knows that he's still a danger, that he's still a predator. And when it goes on to say his lack of honesty in dealing with staff, he's been caught on 2 occasions with these type of images. And I'll repeat myself again, but I'll say it again. When he's committed this heinous crime against poor James Bulger, even though he was a 10-year-old himself, 10-year-olds know exactly what they're doing. And the pair of them went on to kill James Bulger in the most horrific way, a 2-year-old toddler. And if someone is prepared or capable of that sort of violence from the age of 10-year-old, and then comes out of prison and doesn't reform or isn't reformed and goes on to be caught with indecent images, then to me, all that says is he's offending is gonna one day get to the point where there's probably going to be another fatality, because people like this can't be, in my eyes, this is only my opinion, everyone's entitled to theirs, people like this that have been let out and gone on to repeat offend again against children, even though there was no children involved as in physically. Obviously there was when these pictures were taken, and this sicko was sitting looking at these pictures when innocent little kids are getting, I'm not even going to say what's happening, but you know me drift or where I'm coming from. And this predator, I'll refer to him as, is looking at these type of images. So there's something not right with him. He's not wired up right, obviously, because of what he done and then what he goes on to do even further. The parole board, in my mind, were right to deny him his freedom, and he'll have to spend another 2 years in prison before he comes up for parole again. But Jon Venables, I mean, he's not even called that now. Like I went on to say earlier on, the pair of them that committed this murder, when they were released from prison, they were given new identities to protect them from coming into harm from the public because of what they've done. People acting out their own justice, people that might have thought they didn't get long enough or didn't spend long enough in, family members, anything. There's loads of different reasons why people might want to act out their own justice. And again, whilst he's in prison, there won't be many people in prison, or the prisoners and the staff won't know who he is. Some people might have the suspicions, but because he's been given a new identity, no one knows his new name. So he will be kept away from the general population. He'll be on the VP wings anyways because of what he's in for. But people probably will have the suspicions about who it is or who he is. And there probably will be other people getting branded Venables, people thinking it's him. But like I mentioned, he'll be on the VP wing, and he's not allowed, or he won't be on general population, because he will come into serious violence if people find out who he is, because of what he's in for, and because of what he done previously to the poor innocent baby. Well, not baby, but the toddler. And he's been given his new identity to protect him. He's been given another chance at life with a new identity to get out there and do something with his life. But no, he's still going on to harm children. And again, he's done it on 2 occasions. And that's why it's been turned down by the parole board, which I think is totally justifiable. But there has been a couple of people asking us to cover this case and asking us about Jon Venables, about his upcoming hearing. And I did reply to them saying I'm not covering none of it until he's actually had his parole hearing. And this was only last week, I believe, when he had his hearing. Oh no, sorry, he had his hearing a couple of weeks ago. But he's just getting his answer back last week, which I went on to describe was a knockback. And he'll have to spend another further 2 years in prison. And he'll have to do more offender behaviour courses. He'll have to show that he's reduced his risk. He'll have to engage with staff. And if he comes up again on his parole hearing in 2 years' time, and he's not engaging with staff, and he's not reduced his risk, then he will get knocked back again, because this is what happens when you come up for parole hearings. If he comes up in 2 years' time, and he's in the same situation that he's in now, and he's not done any more offender behaviour courses, he's not talking, or he's not opening up with staff, and there's still concerns over his further future risk, then he will not be released. He'll get another 12 to 18 month or 2 year knockback. And that's what happens every time you come up for a parole hearing. But like I mentioned, I didn't want to cover the case until he'd actually had his hearing, because I would have had to do another video to see whether he'd been released or he'd had the knockback, which he's had. So that's why I've left it up until now. But I'm sure the majority of people watching will know exactly who this predator is, and they'll know exactly who the poor little toddler James Bulger was, because like I've mentioned, the case was or is high profile, and it's been in the media attention since it happened. But I hope everyone enjoyed that piece of content there. I've covered it as much in detail as I could about the parole board and about what happened and why he was knocked back. But if you are enjoying the content, people, remember to comment, like and subscribe. Take care everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.